Care Board of Governance meeting for Wednesday, September 6th. I'd like to call this meeting to order and really thank everyone for coming, their participation. We do know that this meeting is rescheduled from our typical cycle and appreciate everyone's flexibility and working and reviewing these items today. And so with that, I will turn this over to Josh for a roll call.
Thank you, Dr. Chang. William Hutchinson.
Here.
Supervisor Spiegel. Ben Howdage. Dr. Chang.
Here.
Can't hear you.
It's me doing? Nope.
No.
Or maybe, oh, there we go. We're hot. All right, Dr. Kendrick Davis. Bill Blankenship. Leticia De Lara.
Here.
Dr. Charles Lee Johnson.
Here.
Oh,
Present.
Linda Barak.
Here.
Carol Alba.
Here.
Sorry, repeat that.
Here.
Thank you. Anise Smith.
Here.
Karen Roper.
Present.
Thank you. And Greg Rodriguez.
Here.
All right. Thank you so much. We have established quorum. Dr. Chang, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Moving on to 2.0 consent items. Yes, I would like to head off to Leticia to introduce our new board members.
Oh, okay, yes. I would like to take the time to welcome Carol Alba. She is the president of Faith in Action of San Gorgonio Pass. And Carol, there you are. I would like to welcome you to this committee, and we're pretty fun. So, and thank you so much for joining us. And I would like to give you some time to introduce yourself. Tell us all a little bit about who you are and why you want to serve.
Thank you. I didn't know I'd have to sit up front. I was going to sit in the back. So, my name is Carol Alba, and I'm president of Faith in Action of the San Gorgonio Pass. We are a grassroots community-based organization about 2 blocks away. And if you ever want to come visit us after a meeting, I'm happy to show you around. Our organization started way back in 2016. However, it sat on the shelf for a long time, not a lot of activity until during COVID and after COVID. We had started to attend the CoC meetings, and the vision of a navigation center came to us. And so we wrote a few grants, got a few sponsorships, and opened a navigation center in 2021. The navigation center has 6 employees and about 10 volunteers right now, and we're 1 block away from the Opportunity Village here in Banning. We do serve all the residents of the Opportunity Village. We provide wraparound services, and I'm so excited to let you know that we actually are opening our first rapid rehousing units on the 15th. We're in the process of getting those staged and ready to go. And that's thanks to the CoC HAP grant. So that's very exciting, but I'm also very nervous about it. Our goal is to serve the low-income, at-risk, and homeless population in the Banning, Beaumont, and Cabazon area. Now, needless to say, we'll be in business for a long time. However, our goal is to reach as many people as we can in ways that will lead them to self-sufficiency. The board of the CoC has been instrumental in helping us get to this point. And when the opportunity came for us to become a member, I jumped at it because I want to represent the smaller organizations that consist that are part of the CoC. There's a lot of us out there that are really struggling to make it and to get into this realm of serving the homeless. And we really want to be a part of the action. And so that's why I'm here. I want to make sure that we are represented and can play our part in this amazing effort that we're all about.
Thank you,
Is
Carol.
that enough? Okay.
That's
Thanks.
very good. Thank you for introducing yourself and your organization, and congratulations on the big step that you've taken. Wishing you success.
Thank you.
Next, I want to acknowledge two members that have been reappointed. First, starting with Dr. Matthew Chang. He is reappointed for another term of 3 years. So thank you very much for wanting to serve, continuing to
No,
serve.
just thank you, everybody. Just really happy to be a part of this group and to learn so much from you all. We know there's so much overlap with behavioral health and housing, and just a lot of more investments and programs to build in the future. So thank you.
Next, we have Bill Blankenship, who is also reappointed. He is representing the private seat and another 3-year term. So I want to give him a chance. He's not here?
He is not
He is not
here.
here, okay.
Yeah, almost a perfect attendance.
Okay, so we will welcome him at the next meeting and thank him for his continued service. And I'll turn it over to Dr. Chang, our chair.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay, so now moving on to 2.0 consent items. And the first one is 2.1, the minutes approval for the May 15th, 2023 BOG meeting. You all should have had access to this. I think it was in the Google Drive folders, and we've got a hard copy for BOG members as well. And so with that, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved. Second.
Okay, Josh,
ahead.
take it a vote, please.
William Hutchinson,
Yes.
Supervisor Spiegel,
Yes.
Dr. Chang,
I'm going to abstain as I was not here at the last meeting. Thanks.
thank you. Aaron Edwards,
Yes.
Leticia, you seconded, correct?
Yes.
Dr. Charles Lee Johnson,
Yes.
Angelina Ko,
Yes.
Linda Brock,
Yes.
Carol Alba, and Karen, you moved the motion. Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you, Josh. Moving on to item 3.0, public comment on any item not listed on the agenda. Josh, have we got any public comment by way of email?
We did not.
Okay. And then let's open the floor for any additional requests from the public to speak. Not seeing anything. Move on to 4.0 and new business. And item 4.1 is the homeless housing assistance and prevention round 3 capital project recommendations. And for this, I turn over to Tanya Torno, Deputy Director.
Good afternoon, Board of Governance members, Chair, and everybody who's here joining us in person, and those of you that are attending virtually. I love that we continue to offer a hybrid model because it allows us to expand our reach across the region. It looks like we have 31 people in attendance virtually, so thank you for joining us. And I want to encourage you to join us in person. We'd love to hear from you and encourage you to make public comments as well. But of course, I digress, and I should be discussing item 4.1. This item is on the board agenda today to provide you with an update on a set aside that the board approved of $1 million using HAP round 3 funds. These are state dollars that come to us from the state that can be used to create more permanent housing options. And the board agreed to dedicate these dollars to create additional permanent supportive housing units to serve chronically homeless individuals. We wanted to inform you that in April, our team did release a request for proposals, and we received a response from one applicant, and we worked with an independent review panel to score the application. In reviewing that process, we have been working very closely with the city where the project is going to be located and learned that there are still some needed approvals that need to happen before this project is ready to begin construction. As a result, we would like to hold off, or staff is recommending we hold off on allocating the funds towards this project until we know that they have the green light to move forward. And our plan is to provide you with a further update during our October meeting so that at that point, the board would have an option to, one, approve that project for funding, or the second option would be to, if not fund the project, then release another RFP to solicit additional applications. I should say there's always a third option of the board could always repurpose those dollars towards another eligible activity under HAP. But for now, because this RFP was released back in April, it's been several months since we've gathered together. We wanted to be transparent, provide you with an update, and let you know that we're still working on moving this project forward. So with that, I'll open it up to see if anybody has any questions.
I have a question. Thank you for the update, Tanya. It's just a technical question. If the city is not able to move forward from a procurement perspective, do you have the latitude, if there's other PSH projects that might need gaps to be filled, to give the board the opportunity to allocate as opposed to reopening another RFP? Is there a way to do that or no?
I'm going to turn it over to our technical expert, Emma Perezing. She's our manager and is very familiar with the procurement and contract process.
No, we're not able to. We only received one bid for this RFP, so we don't have the ability to reallocate to another bidder.
Okay.
So we would either have to go back out to RFP or reallocate the funding into a different activity.
Thank you.
I will add, from experience, we know that these projects take time, and sort of these types of, we can call it a setback, right? The city that's working with this project has additional questions and additional requirements for the project to basically administer. So we see these delays with development projects. We are very much working closely with Mike Walsh and the development team under our county's Housing and Workforce Solutions Department, and taking direction and recommendations from them. So they have very much assured us this is somewhat normal and have encouraged us to make the recommendation to hold off before releasing an RFP at the moment.
Thank you. Tanya, please.
Thank you for the update. Noticing that one project proposal was received, I'm curious how many you expected.
The last time that we released the RFP through HAP Round 3, we received a total of 3 applications. It was determined that one was nowhere near project readiness, so we narrowed it down to 2. And I believe both of those projects were moved forward for funding. So in regards to your question of how many we expected, I think we at least expected 2 or 3.
And what is the timeline for this funding to be spent out?
For a great question. For HAP Round 3, we have until, is it 2025? 2026. I'm sorry.
June 30th, 2026.
Thank you, Josh.
As a follow-up to my earlier question, you said you were expecting 2 or 3. We received only 1. Do you think there's a reason that we did receive only 1, and things we might keep in mind for the future to make sure it's more accessible?
We were very intentional about, again, partnering with our community and housing development division to make sure that the bid application was made available to a multitude of developers. We also, work very closely with the Inland Housing Coalition and made sure through AYOCO and some of the other members there to make sure that word got out. I think we're definitely open to any additional recommendations. I think some of it is just really in regards to project readiness. A lot of these projects are working with their respective jurisdictions to get permissions to build the projects. And so a lot of that takes time. And then the other piece too we know is, and Greg can probably speak more to this, a lot of these projects are leveraging funding from different funding sources. And so I think one thing that we really spelled out in our application is, we want to make sure we fund projects that are going to come into fruition. So if they have a significant funding gap and cannot demonstrate that, these dollars will make the project whole or complete, it sort of poses a challenge. But Greg, feel free to weigh in.
I'll just add that many developers won't look at $1 million as a substantial amount. And so that's why you don't have a lot that would go after that $1 million. It's different if you're going after 10 or 20. So they just don't really want to take the time to do the application and all the reporting. So that's probably the primary reason, Councilmember Edwards.
So can I ask, how long are you going to do this set aside limbo? Have you given any thought to how long you're going to allow them to be a front runner?
Mm-hmm.
And when their clock is run out, for them either opting in or opting out?
Yes. Our recommendation was to wait until the next Board of Governance meeting in October. It was by then that we had hoped to make this an actionable item and make a recommendation to either move forward or move with the other. I talked about the two options, either, right, we select not to move forward with that project application, release a new bid application, or the third option is always to reprogram this funding and use it for a different activity. But we will take any other suggestions and recommendations from this board.
RFP is always cleaner and more straightforward, in my opinion.
Okay.
And they're aware of this timeline, so they know that this is a do or die type of situation, that by the next BOG meeting, they need to, step up to the plate or let us go forward with whatever the next steps are.
They do. I have not used the terms do or die, but I will make sure that I stress that.
Well, at this point, this is a lot of money. It might not be a lot of money for them, but we're holding up the process. And the longer we wait to RFP it, the less time people have to develop this response, because it takes a lot. It is a very huge endeavor. And the more time people have to start considering applying and getting their ducks in a row, the better. Not putting down this particular group, things happen, life happens, but you have a timeline, you have a deadline, you need to either be ready or we're moving forward. And they could reapply, correct? And resubmit and start the process over again and still have the competitive opportunity, but we're holding up a process. And I think it's a good courtesy, but I still have my concerns about the timeline. So, thank you.
I just have one other comment is, wanted to thank you guys as staff because I know that we can see the fruits of temporary housing quickly when we're doing rapid rehousing or tenant-based rental assistance, but those are temporary. And you're working to try to create a system that's lasting. And this is a capital development project, which is forever. As far as the restrictive covenant goes, obviously it can change depending upon what's negotiated with the funding sources, but this is long-term, and I know these projects are complex and difficult. So I just want to thank you guys for hanging in there. I trust if you guys felt that we were in serious jeopardy, you'd be here telling us right now we should be reallocating it. So
thank you. I appreciate the discussion and recommendations. Yes.
So is there like a list that you have on your shovel ready? We call it shovel ready. What'd you call it? Ready?
Yeah, we project ready, shovel ready. Yeah.
Okay. Do you keep a list of those projects so that if there's monies that suddenly are unable to be spent and we're going to redirect, reallocate, do you go to that list, or is it just people throw names at you? How does that work?
So yes, we do have a list of projects, and Mike Walsh, our deputy director, who is responsible for developing projects across the region, maintains that list, and it's very detailed. It does identify how much each project needs. For HUD Continuum of Care funding, we always go out to bid. It's part of our procurement process. And a lot of times the federal funding and state funding that we receive requires us to go through that process. I will say that I think I don't want to say it's a challenge, it's a good thing. We've received other dollars through, as an example, HIP, so I think of the Housing Homeless Incentive Program, that I think we earmarked over $10 million to support similar capital projects. That funding was much more flexible and allowed us to surpass the bid process and work through that existing list, so that if we had projects throughout the region, and we always try to distribute equitably across all 5 districts, we could just quickly kind of piece that money wherever it's needed. So yes, we have the list with HAP funding. You know, it requires sort of that extra step. We have to go out to bid.
And Tanya, if I can add, Supervisor, really, we've developed a complete pipeline of projects from just conception to really shovel ready as well. And just one correction is it's actually $20 million that we've allocated through HIP to construction projects. So.
Geez, am I just getting it all wrong?
Yes, you
today? Okay. $10 million is allocated, but there's like $10 million in incentive funding that we're going after.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Greg, she was just checking to see if you were paying attention.
I always love correcting Tanya.
Thank you,
I don't have to rarely, though.
All right, thank you very much for that robust conversation. I just want to open it up to any members of the public for comment on this item. This item is informational only. Okay, not saying anything. I'd like to move on to item 4.2, the reallocation of funding from Transgender Health and Wellness DV Bonus Rapid Rehousing Project. And for this item, I'd like to turn over to Emma Perez Singh, Administrative Manager.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Board of Governance members. Item 4.2 before you is for the reallocation of HUD CoC 2021 funding that the Continuum of Care was awarded for our DV bonus projects in the amount, we were awarded in the amount of $2 million, of which $416,913 was awarded to transgender health and wellness. HWS staff meets with transgender health and wellness staff each month to provide technical assistance and project monitoring and performance monitoring, as well as monitoring of the project spend down. Before I get into the details of this, I did want to just thank Tommy and her team for working diligently with our staff through technical assistance calls and emails. This was their first HUD CoC project, and as we all know, HUD CoC projects can be administratively burdensome. They require a higher level of match in addition to a lot of restrictions in terms of eligible activities. So they currently have $328,000 remaining. Of that, $185,000 has been identified and agreed upon between transgender health and wellness and CoC staff for reallocation. And just as a note, this funding does need to be spent by December 31st, 2023. So staff is recommending reallocating to His Daughter's House as the next most responsive bidder during the 2021 HUD CoC competition. His Daughter's House has proven their ability to manage and expend HUD CoC funding, having taken over a grant during the 2020 HUD CoC cycle. They took over the SWAG Rapid Rehousing Project Grant and managed to perform extremely well programmatically, and also were able to expend down 100% of the funding. So given that, our recommended motion is to approve the reallocation of $185,000 in DV bonus rapid rehousing project funds to His Daughter's House for the remaining term of the project, which is ending December 31st, 2023.
Thank you very much, Emma. Any questions or comments from the board?
I do have a question. There is very limited amount of time, that's 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
And does staff have any concerns that they will be able to spend down the $185,000 in that period of time?
I'm happy to jump in. I will definitely say it's going to be a challenge to spend down the full $185,000. rapid rehousing is difficult, especially in this housing market when you have 3 months to not only identify clients, get in contact with them, but also, help them apply or submit a series of applications, rental applications, and then, convince landlords to enroll those clients or approve those clients as tenants despite credit issues, background issues. So it definitely is going to be a challenge. The advantages or some of the things that his daughter's house will have working for them is that any clients who are enrolled to the program will be eligible to receive continued rental assistance when the program renews in January. So they can still, when recruiting a landlord, say, their move-in date is October, that family will be eligible for rental assistance for a 12-month period. So they definitely have that to an advantage, but I do want to be realistic and say, it is a challenge to try to lease up. And I think when we did the estimate, they would need to lease up anywhere from like 10 to 15 individuals within the next 3 months. I also want to give the additional background that, as Emma mentioned, HUD Continuum of Care programs are definitely the most challenging to administer because they are set on a 12-month period. Transgender health and wellness is new in administering this program, but also what I will say is they're new, and I think the other challenge that we have is that, it's a year period. We know that HUD is working on changing the program so that it allows for multi-year contracts. So I think in the future, we're going to see some changes that will be favorable and allow agencies to have multiple years like our state programs do, so to serve the number of clients. But from past experience, his daughter's house has stepped in to support us when another subrecipient was unable to fulfill their requirements, and they were able to meet the goal. So they may surprise us, but at least we want to make this effort so that we try to spend down as much of the funding as possible.
So can you tell me where his daughter's house is geographically located?
Yes, they are located in the city of Riverside. That is where their main office is at, but their case managers, like many of our subrecipients, go to where clients are located. So if clients are referred from this program from the Coachella Valley or the Southwest region of the county, they will go and meet the clients where they are located and facilitate housing connections and social service connections in those respective areas.
I have a technical question. This, as far as it may depend upon the rules for the program, but if they had existing clients that were already in the pipeline and receiving assistance, if they had the ability to use this money to supplement the existing clients that are already housed, it might be an easier way to grease the skids to accelerate the spending the funds. It's just whether or not the program rules would allow for it. Because I thought I heard you say that they'll continue on after the grant ends. So that's the only reason why it might be a strategy worth pursuing. So.
I love that recommendation, and we can definitely look at having conversations with his daughter's house to see if they have clients who may be eligible.
Yeah.
As long as they were homeless and receiving rental assistance, they can be transferred over.
Just my last question on this is, did we have any additional time, any advance notice that this was kind of leading in this direction?
The project started in January, and we meet monthly with all of our subrecipients to monitor progress. And in that, we do a budget projection to look at where they're at in spending. With newer projects, we definitely tend to give a bit more grace for startup, especially the first or 2 months, because usually they're using that time to onboard staff and so forth. But I can tell you that from January until now, we have been meeting with them and working very closely with them. Usually agencies will make an attempt to first try to solve for the problem and request additional referrals through our coordinated entry systems to see if they can successfully get the lease-ups needed. But at this point, 4 months into the end date, we've recognized and we've received their approval to move forward with a different plan because, again, there's an urgency here. We want to spend as much money as possible. I will say that for the HUD Continuum of Care program, this is the first time that we've stepped in this early to reallocate funding. When Emma mentioned that SWAG or his daughter's house had taken over the SWAG project, that was very early on before the project had started. So this is the first time where you as the board are being proactive and looking at a project that's in progress and making a recommendation to redirect it to another agency that can spend. So I think from that perspective, HUD will be very proud because I don't think too many continuums of care are as proactive or taking those steps.
Tanya, I understand that one of these subrecipients are unable to spend down, and there's about 185,000 left, and this recommendation is with his daughter's house. My question is, if you're meeting with the other subrecipients, and it sounds as if it's challenging given the restrictions to spend the money down. If his daughter's house runs into significant challenges, are there other subrecipients that might be able to step in? If his daughter's house can do half or 3/4 to ensure we spend as much as spend down as much as possible, could we revisit it if they're running into struggles and see if anyone else can chip in and help, or is that possible?
We absolutely can do that throughout the contract period. So as long as that action is taken before the end of December, we can. And I think that's a really good recommendation for our staff to consider. We can reach out to our existing subrecipients, and you'll get to see a list of them when we advance to, I think, item 4.4. So just know that we did reach out to all of the subrecipients ahead of time to see who had the capacity to take on this project. His daughter's house stepped up. And it doesn't mean because the others were silent that maybe at the time, they weren't able to, but they might reconsider if we're able to. Dr. Cheng, to your point, we're not asking you to take $185,000. Maybe we're asking you to only take $40,000 or $60,000. So I think that's a really good recommendation that we can look into.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to modify the recommended motion to approve staff recommendations with the caveat that we give them the authority to, if they need to find other providers, not have to come back to us given the small amount of money and the short timeline that they're facing.
Yes, I would be in favor of that. Thank you.
I'll second.
All right. So the motion as stands is to approve the reallocation of the $185,000 in DV bonus rapid rehousing project funds to his daughter's house for the remaining term of the project ending December 31st, 2023, with the caveat that CoC staff has the authority to reallocate funding before the project end date if his daughter's house cannot expend the funding fully. Correct?
Yes, that's
Okay.
the motion, I believe.
Great. Lieutenant Hutchinson?
Yes.
Supervisor Spiegel?
Yes.
Dr. Chang?
Yes.
Councilmember Edwards?
Yes.
Leticia De La?
Yes.
Dr. Charles Lee Johnson?
Yes.
Angelina Co?
Yes.
Linda Brock?
Yes.
Kara Abba? Anise Smith?
Yes.
And Karen Roper, you moved the motion.
Mhm.
Thank you. All right, motion passes.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to item 4.3, allocating funding from California Emergency Solutions and Housing Program. And for this item, I'd like to turn over to Tanya again to speak to this.
Thank you. This item is on the agenda because we have a need to redistribute and spend down funding that came to the CoC through the state's California Emergency Solutions and Housing Program. We have a total of $71,000 in administrative savings that we'd like to convert into direct service dollars. In reviewing where monies are needed the most, we have determined that all of the projects that we fund across each supervisorial district have funding except for District 4. Both the Coachella Valley Association of Governments and the Coachella Valley Rescue Mission, who administer rental assistance programs in that region of the county, have fully exhausted their funding and have agreed to administer the program. And so we're recommending to split, not quite evenly, but redistribute that funding so that the Coachella Valley Rescue Mission receives $37,385, and the Coachella Valley Association of Governments receives $34,393. Again, both agencies are on board. There is also a timeline to spend down the funds by May of next year. So we have a little less than a year, a few months. And at this point, we're requesting for the board to approve moving this action forward so we can begin to amend these agreements and give the green light to the agencies to take new referrals from our coordinated entry system and help house clients. So with that, I'll turn it back to our board, our chair, and see if you guys have any questions.
Councilmember Edwards.
Question and comment?
Well, first, I'd love to congratulate you on having the savings. I think that this is really good news. I'd love to know how you did it. And exciting to see that we're looking at ways to take admin savings and reinvest them. And I really appreciated in the last meeting the way that we saw the dashboard so we could see geographically where the money was being allocated. And so this is, to me, a good example of how we're using that data to be really smart about where we're putting the money. And so I would move to approve.
Thank you. Karen, please.
I just wanted to second what you had mentioned, that thank you so much to HWS, because oftentimes local government is starved for administrative dollars, and you'll often see they have to support administrative just because they have to have staff to administer all of the programs. And looks like HWS has achieved administrative savings and is instead choosing to redirect that towards savings. So we know that comes with a cost, and we just want to thank you guys for being so efficient. My question is, if this particular region is so desperate for more rapid rehousing, are we allocating enough money to that region, and do we need to think about that as a strategy for future allocations? I just throw that out there because this is a very telling sign of the needs in that particular region of the county.
I know we have some board members that are from the Coachella Valley, so I definitely want to encourage feedback from you. I think what I will share is that during our October Board of Governance meeting, we can provide you with an update on how much money has been distributed to each region. I know we provided the dashboard during our last meeting. It's been a few months, and I just think with the recent HAP awards that we did during the month of May, it would be good to kind of see how funding is distributed, and then we can even open it up, right, to the public and board members to kind of give their thoughts on, is this a fair distribution? Mm-hmm. You should know that we are using the point in time count data and percentages where the unsheltered population is located to determine how much funding goes into each district. And, you know, we'd love to get feedback on whether you think this is the best approach or if anything else can be done. I think Greg and I would definitely highlight that we always need to do additional advocacy for more dollars, federal and state dollars. And I think that could also be a part of the conversation as well.
Well, the amount that you're talking about can be, dare I say it, gobbled up quite quickly, especially knowing these two particular agencies. They can do that in a blink of an eye and do it well. So sometimes my concern is when we take newer agencies like with one of the ones that we were speaking about before, who I do not believe ever had a HUD contract, nor wrote directly for a HUD contract, and was awarded from an application. It was a different process. And knowing HUD and what a heavy lift it is, you know, sometimes we need to be a little more cautious, because my favorite saying is be careful what you wish for, because you could get a HUD grant, you know. So I mentioned that. So anyway, these two, no problem. And I do think it's very good that you are doing it proportionately with where we know the homeless are, and that we're bringing services to them in their, what they consider their hometown and their space.
Can I add one thing on there too, is that not only the point in time count, but I think it's important too, is that there's only certain places in the county that have the infrastructure to deliver services. So while there may be not an equal distribution, it really is targeted to not only the populations where there's a larger unhoused population, but also how we can leverage those dollars with existing infrastructure, both human and capital.
And I just want to add that I think the reason why this is successful, you know, with these two agencies and knowing that they will be able to expend the dollars very quickly, is that they do take a regional approach, that they are working with all of the cities of the Coachella Valley. So that is a very well coordinated program.
Okay, thank you all for the conversation. If there's nobody else from the board, I'd like to open it up to members of the public for any comments. And not seeing anything, is there a motion to approve a staff recommendation as discussed?
Motion to approve.
Everyone likes this.
I think Councilmember Edwards had moved the motion. So we'll do that and then.
Second.
Love it. Thank you. All right. Lieutenant Hutchinson?
Yes.
Supervisor Spiegel?
Yes.
Dr. Matthew Chang?
Yes.
Councilmember Edwards, you moved the motion. Thank you for that. Leticia De Lara?
Yes.
Dr. Charles Lee Johnson, you seconded. Thank you. Angelina Coe?
Yes.
Linda Barak?
Yes.
Kara Alba? Anise Smith?
Yes.
And Cam Roper?
Yes.
All right. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. For the next item, RUHS Behavioral Health is being considered for a couple of these projects, so I am conflicted, and so I will hand this over to the co-chair.
I am also conflicted. So I will recuse myself on this item as the city of Riverside is being considered.
Yeah. So I think we have three conflicts, Dr. Chang, Councilwoman Edwards, and Supervisor Spiegel, because there's some city and county awards. What we agreed for this meeting is that we would have you sit just here in the audience, and that way the board can continue to converse.
Okay, so I will lead this part of the meeting, and so the item 4.4 is 2023 HUD Continuum of Care Program Funding Recommendations, and I will turn it over to Tanya to walk us through.
All right, I promise you for future meetings, we're going to rotate our speakers, so you're not just hearing from me. But this is a good item because we're talking about, once again, expanding our programs and going after some competitive funding, new funding that will allow us to serve more people across the entire county. And to begin, I wanted to recognize that of the funding available, about 13.8 is available to support existing projects. So it's important to keep in mind that the majority of this funding is being used to support projects that are already in play today, that are already serving clients. These clients are in housing, and the monies are being used to not only support their rent, but also staffing who is visiting with clients frequently, pretty frequently. I'm sure the subrecipients would tell you they're visiting with people on a monthly basis, helping them get connected to employment, apply for SSI, and obtain life skills they need to obtain permanency and self-sufficiency. Additionally, HUD also provides us with the mechanism to apply for new funding. And for that, there is 1.4 or 1.5 if you round up, which I know I tend to do, but 1491 624 available to support domestic violence bonus projects, and then $1 million to support regular new projects through a CoC bonus fund. And so if we advance to the next slide, you'll see just some of the basics that HUD requires as part of our review and rank guidelines. The reason we're reviewing this today is because HUD wants to ensure that when we worked with the CoC's independent review panel, that they followed very specific guidelines for how they were going to evaluate project performance and how they were going to rank each project by priority. So what you should know is that earlier I mentioned that there's 13.8 available to support renewal projects. HUD requires that 93% of that funding be used to support projects in what they refer to as Tier 1. And in a second here, I'll show you what the independent review panel is proposing, or which projects the independent review panel is proposing should be included in Tier 1. The projects are being ranked in order of their score. So earlier this year, we met with the Continuum of Care membership body. We published the project scorecards, which they developed with our HUD consultant, that measures length of stay in their programs, measures how many people from their projects are exiting into permanent housing, enters wage increases, right? Are we helping people go from zero income to now being on disability if they're, they have a permanent disability? Are we helping them, again, enter the workforce? So all those different measures are being used to give each project a score. And these projects are ranked in order by that score. Additionally, HUD is recommending that we prioritize renewal projects in Tier 1 to the extent that we can. And that is because HUD pretty much guarantees that they will fund everything in Tier 1. And because there are clients served in those programs, right, they don't want any clients losing out or being kicked out of any existing housing assistance. Fourthly, HUD encourages, but again, it's ultimately up to us, that any new projects such as those funded under the CoC and DV bonus go under Tier 2. And then locally, we have agreed not to, or to keep first term projects in Tier 1. That is because many of our first year projects are still in operation. So some of the projects we talked about earlier with transgender health and wellness as an example, those projects still have not ended. So we can't effectively evaluate them until their project ends. So for that purpose, we're keeping all of those projects in Tier 1, and we have not yet given them a score. And then lastly, I think all of us know the importance of coordinated entry system. That's a program that our county behavioral health system administers for us. They manage the Home Connect hotline. They help manage the homeless by name list. And as agencies have vacancies and need to refer clients for their projects, they're working directly with that team. Additionally, we have our homeless management information system. That's the database that we use to track all of our data, and then we'll be talking about more during the next item to look at how we're monitoring or making progress towards each of our benchmarks. And then we also have our planning team. So that is our HWS staff team that is here with you today and is facilitating those meetings, also helps facilitate the homeless point in time count and works jointly with CES to facilitate planning for some of our special subpopulations like seniors, families, and youth. We just wanted to give some examples of how HUD requires us to organize these projects. And if you advance to the next slide, you'll see a list of all of the projects that turned in an application and how they were ranked into Tier 1 and Tier 2 by their score. Give you a moment to review that. I will make a few additional notes in that we had a total of 5 new project applications. 2 of those applications were for the DV bonus, and 3 of those were for the CoC bonus. 4 of the 5 are being recommended for funding. The agency that the independent review panel did not elect to move forward is a member of our continuum of care, and I just wanted you guys to know that we are planning to work with that agency to have a debrief and to help them strengthen their application for the next round of funding. And the last comment I will say is that because HUD requires us to organize 93% of the funding into Tier 1, there is a straddle project. There is a project, if you look at number 18, RUHS Behavioral Health, who scored an 80 and whose funding is sort of split. The majority of it remains in Tier 1, but the remaining is split into Tier 2. I did an analysis looking back at the last 6 years of our HUD continuum of care programs, keeping in mind that 1 year we were automatically renewed because of COVID, but we have not experienced a situation where a straddle project was not funded. And I think it's important to notice that with the score, this is a project, or we have 2 renewal projects, the behavioral health one I just referenced, and then Lighthouse Social Services that scored an 80 out of 100. I think we all know an 80 is still a very good score. This is a good performing project. And for that reason, we are not recommending for it to be reallocated. A lot of the times agencies lose score, and it's really due to more of the administrative pieces like billing and claims were not turned in on time. Usually it has little to do with direct delivery of services. When we look at bed utilization, for the most part across these programs, they're serving the number of clients that they need to, and the challenges are mainly due to sort of the administrative burden of carrying out HUD continuum of care programs. So with that, I know I've said a lot. I'll pause and see if anybody has any questions for me.
Thank you, Tanya. Is there any questions from the board?
I have a comment. Question.
Karen?
Thank you so much. So Tanya, I'm just wondering, for the organization that needs to build capacity for the future RFPs, and it might depend upon the funding source and rules, but is there an opportunity to incentivize pairing up organizations together where maybe an experienced agency that is well qualified could partner with a smaller agency that doesn't have that experience, and the one agency is the lead agency, but you would allow them contractually to partner with them to share resources to help clients. So their case managers could be helping, they could be doing a lot of the work, but you have the responsible agency as the fiscal agent to see if we have another way to build capacity through our continuum of care. So I hope that's not too convoluted, but.
No, it's another great question. And just know that from your questions, we take direction, we make lots of notes. And I think one idea that comes to mind, Karen, as you were saying that, is we definitely could look at incentivizing agencies that partner with newer agencies and help them build capacity by giving additional points in future RFPs. I think the other piece too, and Linda and I were talking about sort of the HUD timeline, and oftentimes how it feels like we have a narrow window of time to prepare the application, release the RFP, and then we're working with subrecipients to try to get that in, usually within like a 2 to 3 week window, and it can feel very, very rushed. So I think another idea after conversing with her is we could really look at beginning sort of that matchmaking process a lot sooner. And so some ideas could be that maybe in early April, we begin to have conversations about the HUD CoC NOFO. We begin to kind of make the announcement that we're looking for partnerships. We're encouraging these types of relationships, and the board and the continuum of care could ultimately make a decision to say, hey, of the projects we fund, you know, not only are we going to give 10 points, but maybe we want 50% of those projects to be sort of those multidisciplinary or collaborative applications. And our team would be happy to facilitate sort of that matchmaking, you know, coordinating meetings where those connections could happen.
Thank you, Tanya. Is that Linda?
Yeah. When we look at this list, many are from the county. So it should be an easy lift to maybe be able to nudge them a bit, to take smaller but talented agencies under their wing, building their capacity.
Yes.
So they too could apply because they then have the expertise. I mean, I go back, way back, over 30 years, where it was very hard. In the beginning, it was like the Wild West, wide open, because HUD and its funding were new to the county. But now it's a tight group, and some of the other agencies that have these expertise need to develop those. You know, when I look at the HUD funding, I'll tell you truthfully, do we really think that's a lot of money? Just saying, I thought I'd throw it out there. You know, it should be double that. How do we get to that point is by getting these bonuses and developing our collaborations and expertise within other agencies.
Thank
and
you.
the innovation. You
Thank
know,
you,
we're
Linda.
talking about inclusiveness. You've got to bring voices in that, so you can hear what's truly needed from a different viewpoint.
Thank you, Linda. Do we have any other board members? Carol?
Yes, I just wanted to piggyback on what Karen and Linda said, and Tanya. Those comments are so important, and it's why I'm on this board. There are so many of us out there that are grassroots, community-based, MONPA organizations, and boy, are we busting our butts to do this work. But it's hard to get in on the big bucks, the money that it takes to do all of this. And I know our organization has reached out many, many times to the larger players asking to partner, pleading to partner, no response. So the other thing that I would suggest is that when you do this speed dating type thing that you want to do, I think it's important that the bigger players need to know what these smaller organizations do. For example, there's a lot of times people will say, well, what do you do? Well, we're a navigation center. Well, what's that? So, you know, I think there needs to be time where we sit and they need to know who we are, this area we serve, and what we do, because that might incentivize them, not just monetarily, but you know, they want to partner when they see what we do. And many times it's the same services. It's just that we're in a area that is hard to reach.
Thank
That's
you,
my
Carol.
comment.
Any other board members have any questions or comments? Okay, how about the public? Do we have any members of the public that would like to ask a question or make a comment? I see none. Oh, I have, please step forward. If you could step forward, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Pleased to meet you. Pleased to greet you. I'm Jerry with Step Up, part of the Riverside County outreach team. And I think that's an amazing idea. As far as collaborating between different organizations, whether large or small, mom and pop, to really help people everyone really has to come together. I really truly believe in the team concept. I was in the Army for 20 years, and that is how we survive. That is how we accomplish the mission. It provides a purpose, a motivation, and a direction. So if the teamwork could be combined with larger organizations and the smaller mom and pop, that'd be awesome. So if I do go to some of those smaller mom and pops, and they ask me, what do you do? And I explain to them. And I've gotten to the point now to where I just have a piece of paper, and I hand it to them, and I say, here's the job description. And they go, oh, that's the same thing that we do. However, we have a few more resources that they don't have, and they have a few resources that we don't have. So once we do combine, it does complete that wraparound service. So the ideas, the comments, the questions, the answers that I just heard today, I'm very amazed and very shocked that I heard it today. It's great, and I hope that that does move forward.
Thank you. So we have no other questions or comments from the board. I do have two things I want to say. One is I was a little bit surprised that the listing didn't include the districts that were being served. Is that something that we're no longer doing, or?
No, and well, I don't mean no. I mean, yes, we are doing it. And what I will just kind of in quick, but I can definitely prepare a report for the next meeting, because I would like you guys to just have a packet that describes all of our different programs by category, and you guys can access that at any time. So I'll prepare that for the next meeting. But what I wanted to say is the majority of our HUD Continuum of Care programs serve clients from all areas. There is, just looking at like the city of Riverside has received funding to prioritize referrals from District 1. And we can definitely, provide you with additional information and background information during our next meeting as to why. These projects have been funded historically or what I really mean is for a number of years. And from the research that I've gathered, the decision was made recognizing that a lot of services, such as sheltering services within the city, serve clients from other regions. Now, I know the same can be said about the Coachella Valley. As an example, the Coachella Valley Rescue Mission. And so we can dig further into that during our next Continuum of Care meeting. But outside of the city of Riverside, all of the other projects do take referrals from the entire by name list, regardless of where the client is from. And if they, as an example, Jewish Family Services has units in the city of Palm Springs. They basically provide the client with an option of moving into those units. If the client elects not to relocate to that area because they want to stay in Riverside, they want to stay in Moreno Valley, then that client is then referred to another project that will support them in that area. But very good question, Linda, and I will follow up during our next board meeting.
I'm the other Linda, I guess.
Oh,
It's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
It's okay. Okay, so I'm glad to hear that you're not doing away with that, because I think it is important to be able to communicate, especially when you see County of Riverside having so many of them. You want to be able to know that it is being that our whole big county is being addressed. The other comment being related to that is the questions from Carol and our member of the public. The mention of the importance that big agency have to or small organizations, and vice versa, that you have so much value and so many areas of reach that we need that expertise going the other way as well. So thank you. So at this point, being no other questions, I'm going to call for the vote. Is there a motion to move this forward?
Motion to support staff recommendation.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. Josh?
All right, thank you. So we have a motion from Karen Roper and a second from Lieutenant Hutchinson, and we will go to a vote. Again, Lieutenant Hutchinson moved the motion. Supervisor Spiegel is conflicted on this item, so will abstain, as will Dr. Matthew Chang and Councilmember Edwards. Leticia De Lara,
Yes.
Dr. Charles Lee Johnson,
Yes.
Angelina Ko,
Yes.
Linda Barak,
Yes.
Carol Alba,
Yes.
Anise Smith,
Yes.
and Karen Roper, you had moved the motion. All right, motion passes.
Very good. Thank you. I'm going to turn it back over to our fearless leader as soon as he makes his way up here.
And I'll give it a minute so we can have our board members who had to excuse themselves to join us. I'll do a long introduction. How about that? So for 4.5, we wanted to once again provide you with an update now that the fiscal year ended for 2022 and 2023 to talk about our progress. One thing that our team is really holding at the forefront is accountability. And that really is a result of the board and the continuum of cares and the county's adoption of its 5-year homeless action plan. And that plan set very specific benchmarks, a total of 6 different benchmarks in which we agreed that we were going to monitor our progress and really test the effectiveness of our homeless delivery system using these 6 benchmarks. And so I'm excited to provide you with a report back, and I want you to know that our plan, our commitment is to every quarter provide you with an update on where we stand for each of these metrics. The other piece is we recognize that a lot of discussions like the ones we had today really focused around funding recommendations, but sometimes we have board meetings where the discussion is really around policy and advocacy. And so to that end, we want these metrics to really serve as a guide. And our plan moving forward is to add them to each agenda item so that, right, we can regularly kind of do a self-test and make sure that all discussions that are brought up at the CoC or at the Board of Governance align with these benchmarks, and so that we can begin regularly to look at how do we increase efficiency, how do we make more progress. So moving forward, what you'll see on the first slide is that we included a printout of our collective impact. It says your collective impact because I know many of our board members, many of our continuum of care members who are on the line all enter their data into our homeless management information system. And we're pulling reports from that system to look at what our impact is. During the last fiscal year, I'm proud to announce that you, through the help of the team members that work directly with clients and are out in the field conducting street outreach services in each district and helping connect people to housing, have assisted over 17,000 unduplicated individuals. That is huge. The numbers that I presented to you during our last meeting were lower because the fiscal year had not ended. So I wanted to make sure that you received the most updated numbers. Again, this is an unduplicated number. And if you remember, our point in time count captured about 3,400 individuals. So truly, again, it's not an apples to apples comparison. More people are accessing our system of care. And it is for this reason that we need to continue to advocate for additional dollars and encourage HUD and the state to use real-time data that's an HMIS to determine how much funding we receive, because hopefully I'm not getting it right. To Linda's point, we need a lot more money than the $71,000 that we were trying to repurpose to the 4th district. I got her nod, so I think I got it right. Thank you. Of those 17,000, 5,100 have been successfully connected to permanent housing. This is a 27% increase from last fiscal year. So we're serving more. The other thing to keep in mind is a lot of the funding that was used to house individuals, as you know, was one-time funding through CARES and ARPA dollars. So my concern, as is everyone is, right, if these dollars go away, then our progress will also diminish. So we need to continue to advocate, lobby, do what we can any chance we have with congressional and local and state representatives to say, you gave us more and we did more, and our data is showing that. I think the other piece that's important to highlight is we often get the question, okay, you're helping a lot of people, but how many of those people are returning to homelessness? And the national average, which we learned about at the National Alliance to End Homelessness, is around 19 to 21%. Our local average is 14%. So we're doing better. And Greg always highlights, like, we're doing better than the states, you know, and the other COCs across the nation. Our data is showing that we're doing better. And I think one story or an additional element that I hope to capture on the dashboard is highlighting how many people we're actually helping connect to workforce. We hear a lot from our subrecipients about the work that they're doing to help prep individuals so they're job ready, helping them apply for resumes, helping them even do mock interviews so that when they go in, they're well prepared. My hope is during the next quarter to give you an update of how many people we actually help that get assisted with workforce, because the vast majority of housing assistance we provide is temporary. It's temporary, it's up to 12 months. So we are, you could say, forcing people to, you know, get jobs and become self-sufficient. Moving on to the next slide, we just wanted to give you a comparison. 17,000 sounds like a lot, but what does that look like across a 3-year period? And you'll see that in fiscal year 2021, we assisted over 10,000. In fiscal year 21-22, we assisted 13,000. So again, this year we assisted well over 27% more people than the last fiscal year. And then if we advance to the next slide, here's where I wanted to end with results of where we're at and with our progress with the 5-year goals we established on our homeless action plan. So again, these are the 6 metrics, and I'm going to try to go through these relatively quickly, and at the end, open it up to any discussions. But the very first goal that we set was that we agreed we needed to make sure that the number of people entering, or the number of people we were connecting to permanent housing, exceeded the number of people that are accessing our homeless system of care. Our data is showing that we're headed in the right direction. We've assisted 960 more people with housing than we've had enter or connect with our street outreach and emergency shelter programs. So again, headed in the right direction. We agreed as a second measure that we would have a 50% reduction in the length of stay for people experiencing homelessness. This measure is specific to the number of people who are being assisted via street outreach and emergency shelter and through transitional housing programs. Our data is showing we have a 3% reduction. Again, we have a 50% reduction goal to meet, but at least we know the trend is right. The third goal is we agreed to have a 70% reduction in the number of people who are being discharged from institutions, such as jails and hospitals. And our data is showing we have a 42% reduction. The fourth metric, we agreed to increase the number of crisis or emergency shelter beds across our region. Just a few months ago, the County Board of Supervisors, and I want to thank Supervisor Spiegel, approved an allocation of $7.6 million in ARPA funding that they allocated to expand shelters across our entire county. So those are all projects that are in progress and that are spread out equally across all 5 districts. The fifth metric is that we agreed to increase the supply of permanent housing units by 75%. Of the beds tracked in HMIS, we're already showing a 27% increase. And then lastly, I know a big one for a lot of us in here, we want to stop the inflow to homelessness. We agreed to have a 75% reduction in the number of people experiencing homelessness for the first time. We had a 3% reduction. So while I'm showing you that the trends are going in the right direction, I should pause because you guys know I get excited, and I don't want that to misconstrued to say that we don't have more work ahead. A 3% reduction in first-time homelessness is not where we need to be. But again, my hope in sharing this information with you is that moving forward, we can make sure that all of our discussions and any future funding recommendations we make are being aided, right, are being aligned with each of these metrics. So with that, I'll stop there and see if any of you have any questions, but also thank our subrecipients for entering their data into HMIS, partnering with us, because without that, we would not have any data to share. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I could add a couple things on this. I think it's really important to note that we're in the first year of the action plan. And that with any strategic action plan, your first year is always one of your most challenging, but it's also setting the foundational level. I think it should be noted too that the county, and especially thanks to the Board of Supervisors, had made a deliberate attempt, especially with the onset of COVID, to really focus on housing and homelessness. Not that it wasn't a priority before that, but because of the extra dollars we received through CARES Act, through the ARPA Act, and other forms of revenue, Dr. Chang has been amazing about acquiring resources through the state for behavioral health, which we all know is a component within this action plan. More importantly to note too is that with ARPA, with CARES, with the HIP dollars through the health plans, we've really started to lay a good foundation. Again, I use the term a lot of human and physical capital. So building up again that foundation that will, and all of those decisions where we've allocated that money have been based on these buckets within the strategic action plan. And how do we leverage the dollars to make sure that we're getting to those goals at the end of the 5 years? So again, to Tanya's point, we know we have a lot of work to be done, but I think most of our participants within the CoC, and I believe the entirety of the Board of Governance realizes we're on the right track and really are leading. I say this a lot like Tanya says, but we really are leading not only across the state, but across this country in the collaborative, leveraging, and cooperative efforts that we're doing.
Tanya, I didn't want to interrupt you as you were presenting, but I wanted to clap. In hearing 17,000 people being serviced, a number of individuals, some who are online, some who are in this room, who've contributed to incredible work. And as we're looking at, measuring is hard work because we have to look at the truth of what's there. And sometimes we know that we're doing even greater work than sometimes what the numbers are showing. For me, long before being Dr. Lee Johnson, I was remembering being homeless in the car with my mother, and that I was amongst those 5,000 or so who received services and received help. And I remember getting out of that car into our apartment and having a place to stay. And for some people that might be easy thing, but there was a lot of stuff that we went through in order to get there. And so if we can, just for a second, to celebrate all of the providers, all of the organizations, all of the leaders, all of the people and the families, the individuals who were unhoused. And they also did the hard work in order to make it to where they are. It would just be easy to gloss over such a big moment. And there's been a lot of great work that's been done. So I'm just going to start my applause now, and whoever wants to join in can join.
Yay.
So, Tanya, what I'm seeing is kind of a net of 13% and stabilizing, truly stabilizing people into housing. When you take we did this, but then this happened, which is good. And you were absolutely right. The biggest part of the team is client, because you can't do it for them. They have to go out and be part of the team. They have to be team their family or whatever it is that's their motivator, their health. And you're absolutely right, Mr. Rodriguez, that here comes CalAIM. And we need to learn how to use it, guys. I cannot put enough emphasis. I know you're laughing at me because you know me. If I were standing up, I'd be jumping up and down. The governor is now indicating a 6-month allowance in support of housing. That's huge. That takes a lot off of us that we can put the dollars elsewhere. I'm the mom of 5. I know how to juggle that budget, and make it work. If I can take it from here, we'll take it here and put it where it belongs. But when I looked at this, I thought, if my kids brought me this report card, but guess what? These are human beings. No matter how small, one is enough, right?
And Linda, I actually had Kathleen written down and bring it up, but two other things too is that we know that we lack a severe supply of not only permanent supportive housing units, but affordable housing units. That's what's gotten us here in the state over decades, and it's going to take time to get out. Again, the county has made significant investments in housing, whether that's general fund dollars, whether it's leveraging tax credits, whether it's project-based vouchers. So we have a number of units in production, really over a 400% increase over the last 2 years in affordable housing units that are under production. Many of those projects are coming online as we speak, and almost a vast majority of those have a significant amount of permanent supportive housing units. That's only going to help this throughput more. To your point, Linda, on CalAIM, absolutely. When I first heard about CalAIM 4, 5, 6 years ago now, I'm like, there's going to be some potential here. But especially with the rollout of the enhanced care management and the community supports, the ability to bill for services, there is a huge opportunity. Tanya and I have had this discussion in Emma for months, if not over a year, about the challenges that many of our providers have, especially the smaller ones, because billing through Medi-Cal is extremely hard. You can partner with the health plans in doing it, which I know you have, Linda, but there's still some challenge in that. So through our HIP discussions with IHP and Molina, and through our conversations in-house, and then a presentation I saw up at the Housing California conference from Alameda County, we are looking to look at the possibility of the county actually being somewhat of a quote unquote fiscal agent for those community supports in utilizing our capacity to do that. There's a lot of research that still has to be done, but both Alameda and Napa County have implemented those type of systems, and they're proving very effective as well.
Well, there's also the past cited
Yeah.
funding, which right now, and I'll say this out loud, because you know me, you're going to hear it if I think it and believe it. Right now, that funding is out for the justice system. I was a little disappointed that I didn't hear it from the continuum. There was a round 2, was it 2, out for providers transitioning and expanding. Not a peep, guys, but Riverside County was funded under that particular rounds. And the technical assistance is there as well. And it's a lesson in those people that have medical, not only are they homeless, but they also have medical issues, which compounds everything in age. So
What was the name of that funding again?
well, it comes out in different rounds, and you need to, it's kind of complicated. Come see me. Or Letty knows it. That there are different rounds for different things, right? And the state does the past cited, which is what allows the capacity building. We know for a fact that there was a very small shelter, and through the past cited, they received almost over $500,000. What are they, 8? Are they 8 or 12? Something very small. But they went through that process, and that's what I think needs to happen, because we need to bring in those dollars from elsewhere to keep up with the cost.
If I can just jump in, I'd like to have the opportunity to do some research on the program and the funding. I'm not familiar with it. So maybe Leticia, if you have or Linda, if you have the information. If it is a county department, what we could do is maybe whether it's for the next meeting, I think you guys have heard me push like 3 or 4 items already for the next meetings, but definitely for a future CoC meeting, we could do some research, invite someone to come and speak on the funding, and definitely highlight future funding cycles that are available, so that the next time this comes out, we're ready for it. But I don't believe I'm familiar with that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, could you just clarify what's the program called?
Well, it comes to path cited or cited path, and it comes directly from the state. It's not only like the Molinas and IEHPs, this is on top of that, where you have 2 years to spend these funds. Are specific They will bolster your infrastructure and give you funds for exactly what you need to expand into what is a big part of Medi-Cal, right? So, and that's the big rollout. And we're going to see a lot of this through 2026. And the justice system is amazing. If you sit down and you read that one, they're actually pre-planning as they're coming out and giving the expertise to the provider and the timeline to do this. I mean, we'll go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I know we're involved in the justice involved piece for different, all kinds of different grants, specifically with Justice in Reach and that transition. But we can certainly go back and look and provide more details.
And I can send links.
That'd be great.
Links to start.
Thank you so much. Wanted to point something out and then just make a comment. What I want to point out is that if you all have this little mini packet, the Homeless Service Impact Report, essentially I think it just does a great job of fleshing out some of the key performance indicators that are listed here and shows the work, shows some of the homework or the math, as it were, and how they got there. So please take a look at that. I think that's very, very interesting and educational. Like everyone up here, I just wanted to really congratulate the team for a multitude of reasons. I think it takes a lot of, you really are being very transparent and accountable in putting out your key performance indicators on this graph right here. I understand, the some thought of like, well, you wanted 75% and you got 3% and 3 is not 75, but I think to Greg's point, this is year 1 of 5, but also in my opinion, these are they're very appropriate, but they're very ambitious goals. I think to see a 75% reduction of this and a 75% reduction of that, I think really speaks to the commitment that this group has, and I really think you're to be all commended for that. I just want to highlight that the 42% reduction in the number of people experiencing unsheltered homeless discharged from institutions, I think that's very, very impressive. So just great work, like everyone has said, and it's great to see. Any other comments from the board? And then open up to members of the public. Yes, Karen.
I just to pointing back to what Greg said about building the system. I think all of us are. Not just us that sit on the Board of Governance, but everybody online and part of our continuum of care are all ambassadors and representatives of this system that is being built. And the process of education for those that don't often understand the complexities of homelessness and affordable housing, I think it behooves us to do what we can as far as our parts to educate, because some people might be thinking, why aren't we seeing results faster with all of this money that is being poured in? So, there's a process that it takes to get housing in the ground. And there's a process that it takes to build capacity with organizations. And then you have factors of impacts from the economy that, it ebbs and flows. So whatever we can do to continue to educate elected officials at the city level, businesses, residents, so that they understand that we are making tremendous progress, but it is like a massive ship with a tiny rudder, so that they don't feel that it's this black hole where all the funds are being poured into. We are making incredible progress, but you may not see immediate reductions in the point in time count of the homeless. It's going to fluctuate, but we keep our sights focused on the goal. So you have my commitment. I will continue to do that. I hope all of us will do that in terms of education.
And if I can chime in, I think everybody here knows I tend to be the optimist in the group, which sometimes drives my husband crazy. He's a much more, just a different kind of personality. But when I look at these metrics, there are definitely some, like the first, where we can say we've achieved it. Our inflow is less than how many people were able to connect to housing. Additionally, just to give a second example, with the additional ARPA allocation that the county approved, that is now going to allow us to build 400 additional units. We're going to exceed our 25% goal. What this means is that we'll be able to check those off and redirect, or I shouldn't say redirect, but like focus on the other metrics. And so when we have discussions on where should future rounds of HAP funding or state or federal funding be spent, we know now that we can redirect those to the other four metrics that we need to accomplish. So while some of them for the first year, Linda's right, we're not necessarily hitting an A. There are others where we've exceeded, either we're on track to meet the goal by next year or the next couple of years, or we've exceeded the rate at which we should have accomplished for the first year. So it's going to allow us to focus or redirect our efforts to where, you know, some of the increases or decreases have not been as significant. So I'm looking at this from the lens of this is good. I like that we have a roadmap. I like that we know where we're headed, and you have our commitment to, again, continue being accountable, provide you with quarterly updates so that, as Dr. Chang said, these are very ambitious goals. We mirrored the state. We aligned our goals with the state. These are what they established as well. And so I'm looking forward to reporting back to you on that progress and also bringing forth recommendations that can help us get these to where they need to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Last thing I'll say, I'm sorry, it's just my math, there's a net 960 folks who are placed into housing. And I mean, think about that. I would trumpet, you know, that number. And if the point in count number is X, I mean, there's not an infinite number of people who need houses. So again, I think we're all to be commended. Just to really reiterate the point, I know with a lot of the investments that the county has been making in infrastructure and housing, this is one of those things, in my opinion, that sort of tends to snowball in a positive way when you start building out these units and then getting folks into that. So again, just congratulations. I think all of you commended on your work on that.
I can,
Please.
I'm staying with everyone, you know, kudos. This is really wonderful. Again, Karen, I think you made a wonderful point about education and understanding that there is an actual homeless action plan document that needs to be referenced. We're just getting a snapshot of the goals and a brief piece of what the hard work is being done. And yes, there is a 14% drop where they returned to homelessness, and that is significant to look at. But we also have a new infrastructure that we're working on. This is a 5-year plan that didn't exist 5 years ago. And so we're moving in a good direction, in a good way. We're addressing a lot of the gaps and the shortfalls that we had previously and continue to have, and we're no longer negating them, we're addressing them. And it is a work in progress. And the smaller agencies that aren't funded, the other agencies that are doing the works, from the civic groups to the churches to the other nonprofits that aren't necessarily included here, need to also be educated and be brought in and brought to the table so that we could fill this room beyond capacity when we have our meetings, because this is where the information hub begins, so we could reach the individuals that these numbers are representing. And that's what we need to remember. This is people. This isn't about numbers. This is making a difference to our friends, our neighbors, and our family members that are experiencing housing disparities. And we are making progress on some goals that are actionable. And it is going to take a lot of work, and it can't just be the 5-10 people at the table. It's the entire community, it's the entire continuum, and it's the individuals that need the work and the services. Our biggest issue is transportation and then housing. So, and how do you get employment to pay for housing if you don't have transportation or childcare? So those are things that are within that action plan that may not be the 5 goals or 6 goals that we're looking at, but they're within there, and they impact greatly that 14% that returned, or those individuals that were or weren't housed. So I just wanted to bring that up. I really think this is great. This is a snapshot of the amazing work that's being done, and kudos to the county and kudos to everyone here that is doing the work, and to the individuals that are reaching out and doing the work they need to do to end their homeless cycle as well. So thank you for allowing me the time.
Thank you. Please.
And just to add, I really appreciated the opportunity to clap. I often skip that part, so thank you so much, and thanks to all of you who are doing the work. Looking at these numbers, as I always go to where the biggest gaps are and tend to focus there. So since we clapped already, I was thinking about the, in addition to all of the people who are, all of the entities that are doing the work on the ground, I was thinking about how this offers an opportunity for the next years of the plan to think about other funders in the region and to create partnerships with funders to say, hey, this year of our plan, we'd really like to focus on, for example, reducing the number of people experiencing homelessness for the first time. Can we all work together on this goal and really move the needle in a big way by all focusing many dollars here? And would love to see how we can help guide those conversations.
So it's a great comment, and that's part of my job. And we have been very successful with, with the health plan dollars. We know there will be a continued relationship with them outside of the HIP dollars. Additionally, the partnerships that we have developed with cities like Corona, Palm Springs, that city of Riverside that invest with us on projects. How do we expand that countywide? But more importantly, to your point, and I've harped on this for years, just haven't started to do it, but many providers such as Martha, CVRM, almost every provider on the call, Carol as well, seek private funding. And I don't think we've done that well enough as a county. And I think the potential is there to get, whether that's foundation dollars or individual philanthropic dollars, large warehousers that come in, I believe have a social responsibility to address this as well. So this is something I'm beginning to work on. And it's a great comment, Councilman Edwards, and definitely something we should pursue as well. What the beauty is by having a strategic action plan and being able to show and demonstrate the metrics, and to Tanya's point, the upward trajectory we're on and meeting those are essential in getting those private dollars, because private funders want to see that you've got a plan and that you're demonstrating results before they're going to invest. So this is really laid, again, another foundation for us to do that, but it's a great comment.
Well, sign me up to help.
Okay. Any members from the public wish to speak on this item? Okay. Well, not hearing anybody. Thanks so much. We'll move on to item 5.0. Go ahead, please, Tanya.
We wanted to take time in this meeting to recognize Cordell Thomas. Cordell, many of you had the privilege, like our team, of working alongside him. He unfortunately passed away on August 15th. And we, like you, were just devastated of the news. Cordell sat on this Board of Governance from 2019 through 2022. And he also was very active with our continuum of care until his very last day. He actually invited our team just a few days before he passed to go meet with a developer in the city of Paris who was interested in building a youth project and also had a home that he wanted to dedicate to youth. He also helped us develop our first time ever Youth Action Board. We have 7 formerly homeless youth who are part of the CoC's Youth Action Board, and through Cordell's leadership, he worked very closely with Monique Guerra, our homeless youth coordinator, to help develop that board. And he was just a great colleague, friend, mentor. And so it's very, very hard and with deepest regret that we share this news. We definitely wanted to take time out of this meeting to recognize him. Most of you know Cordell, but also know he was best known for his positivity. He could really light up a room. And man, was he an advocate for not only youth, but for homelessness and addressing homelessness and creating more housing. He very, very much deserved to be in the room, and always brought in such such love and positivity in everything that he did. So again, we wanted to share this. He is survived by his wife and his 3 little children. We will send a link to the memorial service that was held last week by his family, in addition to his family's contact information in case any of you would like to stay in touch. I recognize that this is new news for some of you, and we appreciate you allowing us to dedicate some time from this meeting to celebrate him and who he was. He was a major, major champion in this work, and he will be deeply missed. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. Any other announcements or anything like to speak to about Cordell? Please, Emma.
I just wanted to very quickly announce that effective tomorrow, we will have a new CoC coordinator, Mariel Sarmento, who is sitting just over in the corner there, will be taking over CoC coordination responsibilities. So please give her a warm welcome. Hey, welcome.
She recently graduated from UCR, public policy, but has been with our continuum of care for over 2 years in December. But what I wanted to highlight, I think many people oftentimes are not aware that we do have staff that work well into the weekends, and Mariel has been that person. So on top of going to school full time for the last 2 years, she has been working Saturdays and Sundays, sometimes well into the evenings, helping us support our migrant family response program. Many of you know that Riverside County has been receiving asylum seekers in 2 parts of our county. It's a 7-day-a-week operation. And there was even one time where I always share this story and she's going to hate me, but I called her to check in on the status of the program and she said, I'm at Disneyland, but don't worry, Tanya, I'm in the hotel and I can take notes and, make things happen from here. So truly deserving of this promotion into the CoC coordinator position, which many of you know Josh carried for a very, very long time. And so he's working very closely with her to facilitate that transition. So congratulations, Mariel. We're so happy to have you on the team.
And Tanya, as we welcome Mariel, can we also just take a moment to recognize Josh? He's very incredible in so many ways. I can't thank you enough, Josh, for all of the hard work that you've done for not just the continuum of care and the Board of Governance, but the many different committees. Always so kind and pleasant and out of the box and ahead of schedule and everything. You're just a rock star. And I just wish you well in all that you do, because I know you will succeed.
Thank you, Karen.
Okay, thank you. Any other announcements from folks? Not seeing any. Item 6.0, a call for any agenda items for next meeting. Questions, comments? Okay, and then our next meeting is scheduled for October 19th, 2023 from 9 to 11 a.m. With that, thank you all very much.
Woohoo! Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. Thank you for everybody who participated.